Welcome to the Sharpest College Football Podcast's Mountain West Conference Preview. I'm BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. Robert, would you consider yourself more of a mountain guy or a west guy?
I think more mountain than west. I like the mountain part better than the west conference. Yeah.
All right, not to get too topical or political, you might have to say goodbye to the mountain part of your country here pretty soon, though, right?
That is true. Most of the part of Canada that isn't mountain time is like somewhat at least actively trying to secede from the country. So that
Yeah.
is true.
So you might become a west guy like me. That's why I'm wearing my California shirt. Shout out to the west there. Love the guys in the mountain too, though. Okay, let me go to the next slide here. In case you missed it in our Conference USA preview, we're gonna make PDFs of all the conference previews podcast decks available. Just leave your email address in the YouTube comments to get access to these, or you can just hit me up on, I still call it Twitter, at BuckMetrics. We'll also throw in the podcast reset with just an overview and glossary and all that good stuff. Speaking of which, this is our glossary. Not going to walk you through it, but take a screen grab of this and refer back to it through this and podcasts through the rest of the season, including the postseason. With that, let's do an overview of the Mountain West Conference. New head coaches at UNLV. Barry Odom moved on to Purdue. Fresno State, interim Tim Skipper was not retained. New Mexico, Bronco Mendenhall moved to Utah State to replace Blake Anderson, who I guess begged to be fired by starting Bryson Barnes. Or no, he had a replacement. That's right. They had a replacement guy last year. They had another interim. My bad. And also, Boise State offensive coordinator / stealth head coach, Dirk Cutter. He's left Boise, we think. I don't think I think he's still probably lurking in the hallways of the catacombs because I think he's going to coach that until he's basically dead.
From the opera style, yeah.
I appreciate that you think I'm cultured enough to know what that really means, but I'll go with it. Anything stand out to you on the conference overview here?
No, I mean that's about right. A lot of turnover, right? It's a conference of what, 12 teams, I think, in the mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, so
No, 14.
14. So 4 of 14 have a new head coach. Maybe you can call it 4.5 if you want to throw in Boise there. That's a lot. There's a lot of turnover. A third of the conference has a new head coach. And obviously probably the top player in the conference, the Ashton Jeanty from Boise State, is gone now. He's playing for the Raiders, which he actually didn't really leave the Mountain West. Stayed in the Mountain West in spirit, but he is no longer playing on Boise State. And yeah, I mean, the thing is that there's a decent amount of turnover there, right? New Mexico was nothing. The new guy came in, brought it up from nothing, and then he left to Utah State, and so now that's a lot of internal churn there. So this one could be interesting. I will say that the Mountain West is generally a pretty interesting conference. I will say that usually the team that wins it the year before doesn't win it the next year. There seems to be a streak of, oh, they won it, and then like it seems like, because I remember a couple of years ago San Jose State was the best team, and then it was like, oh, San Diego State, and then it's like Boise State. So this one seems to be really, okay, it's up for grabs every year. Where someone new grabs it every year.
Yeah. The other thing I will point to here, there's a lot of red here, and there's a lot of red here. And I bring that up because, as we were talking about in the Conference USA preview, this makes going through the mental task of really getting an accurate projected win total, or not projected win total, likelihood of going over or under the posted number, really tricky. You get to these teams, there's, 5 or 6 teams in the bottom there that have serious shortcomings. Like we joked about, if Missouri State is playing New Mexico State, you're demanding the money line, you're demanding plus money on both sides, and I think a lot of these games in the bottom quadrant here have a lot of that double plus money situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. We will go, as is going to be custom for this year, in Phil Steele order. And so that means that we will start with defending champions, the Boise State Broncos. As Robert mentioned, Ashton Jeanty is gone. Really important that I had them as the third luckiest team in FBS. I was pounding the table for a lot of last season saying this team is really not nearly as good as people think. I'll say I was borne out to be correct in the playoffs. Maybe they had a little bit of bad luck, but I'd say that was bad luck of their own doing. In fairness, Maddox Madsen, 107 apex in his first year starting. Good. Very solid for his first year. Like we said, supposedly the new OC is Nate Potter. He was the tight end coach. Interesting fact from Phil Steele, he's the 7th offensive coordinator in 7 seasons now. Interesting. The 24 defense was sneakily bad. That was my real problem with this team, and we all knew that GT was good. We had a negative defensive power rating here. That's what my problem was with this team. Now, they should improve based on this improvement metric for defense. Let's see. They get UNLV at home. They avoid San Jose State, who Phil, I think, has as his next two teams in the conference. So, favorable schedule once again somehow. If I'm looking at their schedule, I look at the two road games, week 1 and 3. I don't think they're going to lose. I think they're going to be a good check of just how solid of a first place team the Broncos figure to be. They should handle South Florida and Air Force. I will say it's fortunate. It's not fortunate to play South Florida in late August. I will say it's very fortunate to be playing Air Force in September rather than in November. We've seen some good hijinks up at Colorado Springs in November. So I think overall they have a favorable schedule. The one thing that I think is, in listening to previews so far, people talk about this. What happens to Ginty? How do they replace him? I think the real question here is, what happens to Maddox without being able to hand off the ball to the Incredible Hulk, who's going to get 7 yards a carry without even trying? Season win total is 9.5, which, if you look at the schedule outside of Notre Dame, and they avoid what I think is the second best team in the conference, market's saying that they're expecting another slip up here. And if you look at that schedule, that might be a little bit of a concern unless you think that UNLV is really something here, or South Florida is really going to come on here. Do I have that over at minus 210 right, or did I get dyslexia here?
I'll check that. Let me check that.
Okay. In either event, I still think they're slightly overvalued because you had luck. You have that same quarterback returning without the easy button, if you will, of Ashton Ginty. The defense should improve, but why were they so bad under a defensive coach? Danielson was the defensive coordinator before he became head coach here. So I'm not going to say they're just a team, but I think they're a good, not a really good team, is my take. Did I screw up that 210? Or is
No, it's actually correct. It is 210.
Wow, okay.
It's rare. It's rare for win totals to have that, yeah.
Yeah, I could not, and it seems like the market just doesn't move the totals anymore for the most part. It looks like they'll just adjust the juice and not the number, so they can't get caught between. There's no way I'm laying 210 just to say they're going to lose to Notre Dame. I have no doubt about that. And just say now you have to basically, you can only have one more slip up. I've just got questions here. I think the market's got them overvalued, especially that minus 210. What do you think?
Yeah, no, so 100%. The thing is, you raise a couple of interesting points there. So I'll talk about the win total first. Yeah, looking at this schedule and looking at what's retained and stuff, there's a real question of where's the second loss here? And for the 210, where's the third loss? Okay, yeah, Notre Dame, fine. But, okay, you avoid San Jose State. Okay, UNLV, it's something, okay. But let's just assume that's another loss. Okay. What are we doing? South Florida now? Where is... it's interesting, because if the book is seeing 2 to 3 losses, where is it seeing 2 to 3 losses? Right?
Yeah, look at those road games at the end of the season. Nevada, San Diego State, and Utah State. They're all in that quadrant of red.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the overview.
But this is the thing, right? It's where is it seeing those losses? It's really hard to see them. I will say a really good point about Maddox, because this is the thing. Completely right. We've seen this before with quarterbacks. We saw this actually with Auburn. At least I think it's former Auburn quarterback. I'm not sure if he's still the quarterback for Auburn, but Peyton Thorne. Remember? Michigan State. He looked amazing when he had Kenneth Walker there. They hand off the ball to Kenneth Walker, creates tons of space, and then all he needs to do is every once in a while throw the ball, and he's generally going to find open people because they have to stack the box against the running back. And look, he looks great. But then he goes to Auburn and looks terrible because guess what? He doesn't have a running back that can go get 8 yards or a touchdown on every other carry. So this is exactly the point. Okay, 107 apex, that's good. We like that for a power 2 or power 4 quarterback.
Especially in the first year.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same point in time, how much of that was, they have to put 8 guys in the box, so I'm going against a Mountain West safety now against the guy, and my guy's just tall. That's the thing, right? How much of there was that in? He looked okay against Penn State in the playoff. Not great, but okay. I think that's the point, right? Because I expected a little bit more from him in that playoff game. Him specifically, because it was very clear that Penn State was just going to say, we're not going to lose to Ashton J&T. We're going to make you throw against
Yeah.
us. 100%. You could read that among anybody. I could say, hey, that's what they're going to do. It's not particularly difficult to say that's what Penn State has more than enough caliber on defense. They could just say, we are not going to lose to you running the ball. We're going to make you throw the ball. And we also have good things, good cornerbacks and safeties and stuff. And okay, 265, but interception, like, okay, but how much of that was just dead? It was like, this game's over already. Let him get 10, 15-yard check down. This is the thing. I had expected more from him in that game, and we didn't see it. And I think that's a little concerning in that case. And again, this isn't like, oh, okay, he didn't know. No, you knew you were going to get those chances, and they gave you the chances, and you still couldn't pull that off. That's a little concerning to me. I will say, though, that, again, if we assume that Dirk Cutter there was the coach, right? This is the thing. If you assume that, because I read up about this today, because he basically said he's retiring, because he says he doesn't like the state of college football with the transfer portal and NIL and the house settlement and all this stuff. Which, by the way,
like a head coach. Sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That sounds a very weird thing for an offensive coordinator to say, because that's not your job. You're not.
No. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh yeah, you literally beat me to it for a second. I was like, that's a very weird thing for an offensive coordinator to say. Like, yeah, like it's a very weird thing to say. But it'd be like a renter complaining about property taxes. It's like, why are you complaining about that? That doesn't matter to you, right?
Yeah,
like this is yeah.
To use our programs. If Will Stein, I can't imagine Will Stein or Tosh Lapoy or Danton Lynn saying, "Yeah, I can't deal with this NIL and the whole state of the game." It's not in their lexicon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not your concern, right? Your concern is to scheme up offensive plays. Okay, yeah, there's some recruitment involved, and okay, maybe you can not like the state of NIL, but there's a question there of like, why now? You literally just went to the college football playoff. Okay, you lost, and like, why now? Is this the fact, like, you have to think, does he know something we don't know? Does he know that, hey, this isn't going to go well next year, and I'm going to leave now, and then maybe they fire their head coach, and then maybe they just make me head coach next year? Is that the idea here? I don't know. So there's something sneaky about that 9.5. That 9.5 is a scary line, because to me it says that the books know something. They know this team. Because if the books were saying, okay, yeah, they're going to lose to Notre Dame and that's it, then that line should be 10.5. That line should be 10.5 minus 120. Why is it not 10.5 minus 120? Why is it 9.5 210? It shouldn't be, because it should be like, okay, then if they're going to lose to Notre Dame and they're going to win every other game, then it should be a 50-50 chance they lose any other game, roughly. We're doing a really rough approximation there, but that's roughly. It should be 10.5. Why is it 9.5? That to me seems very weird.
Yeah, it's typically more tickets. I don't know about money flow, but I think they'll default for a lower number in a case like this, just because I think they're happy to book at the 9.5 and just say, "Oh, Boise's a name. This will get a lot of overaction," and it clearly did. I think they're happier than that than if they got 10. I think they're probably getting a lot more money. I'm guessing at 10 that there would be a lot less volume and it'd be probably a lot more even in terms of the juice.
But they know that that when you're dealing with the books, you always have far more money on overs than unders, right?
Yes.
So if you're the books, wouldn't you much rather have an over on 10.5 rather than 9.5?
I think that they actually just said, I'll put it this way. I'm happy to take the action. If this is Buck's book, I'm happy to post at 9.5 and get all the money coming in from people that just reflexively just say, "Oh, Boise, good." Bet money.
Unless you know something.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too. I think if they're going to be realistic, they're going to be more realistic to posting a low number. It just seems to me. It seems like the unrealistic numbers are higher. You don't really see a sneaky good team getting get a number that's way too low. If that makes sense. So I'm thinking the other side of that is that they default to, okay, I'm going to be realistic to the under, or to a lower number, not the under.
Fair. We'll see. I think they're overvalued. It's hard to point to. I think my final take on this, because we actually do have to go on to other teams, but yes. I think my final take on this is that I can't point to why this would go badly or this could go sideways, but I feel like it can, if that makes sense.
That's why the 9.5 is an indicator of that.
Yeah,
It's not like there's a sneaky there's no, again, South Florida. I don't know, that's not the, and then after that, what's the third? Come on, it's just, this isn't a great conference outside of them.
App
One more.
State, like I.
No, they're in a rebuild. Not about Boise, but I think about, to use Maddox Madsen as a point, what he was good at last year, and I just want to use this for the rest of the previews as appropriate. He was good when he had great opportunities at basically not being Gavin Wimsatt, to go back to Jacksonville State preview. So that's good for him. He wasn't Gavin Wimsatt, and I don't think he did much more than that, given the opportunities he had. Okay, thank you. Robust conversation about Boise. We go to San Jose State, who Phil has number 2. A surprising 7-6. People were pretty skeptical. I was trying to talk Duck into the over here, and he was skeptical. Oh, Duck will be back with us in our next preview. Couldn't make it tonight. They transitioned to a completely different offense, to spread and shred, with new first-time offensive coordinator Danny Stutzman. They do lose 2 really good wide receivers in Nick Nash and Justin Lockhart. Both graduated. Excuse me. They do have the Mountain West top returning quarterback in Walter Egat, 110 apex, decent enough margin over Maddox Madsen. If we look here too, without the running game that Madsen had, the GGAB of 33, GGAB plus a 33 for San Jose State. Offensive line should be very much improved. They had a lot of learning curve last year as well. So the offense should be better if they can replace these 2 good receivers. We'll come back to that in a second when I throw it to you. They had sneakily the 3rd best defense in the conference, and they should be amongst the most improved here with a high improvement metric. They avoid both Boise State and UNLV. I want to see that. I'll put it this way. I want to see them blow out Central Michigan at home in week 1. That's my acid test for them right away. I have them pretty undervalued at 7.5 here. I think the market's a wait and see on the receivers, and I'm going to throw it to you on this. I'm actually glad that they had 2 guys that had such big Ryan, and in a weird way, I think that they took all the receiving oxygen out of, or all the oxygen out of the receiving room, and there was no place for anybody else to prove themselves. I don't think that you have any proven failures in the wide receiver room. I think there's just, we don't know. And I think this is a good situation where you're going to have talent that's wanting a chance here too. So I like them. Do you think that's you buy my theory in the wide receiver room there?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, again, whenever you're dealing with a school like a Mountain West school, MAC, Conference USA, having any amount of good receivers is a pretty good, decent accomplishment, right? That's the thing. If you have 2 of them, right? And the thing is, you don't just get that naturally. This isn't just some kid who's, I live down the street, I'm just going to come here. That's recruitment. You're actually good at recruiting these kids, right? So I will say that is a positive. I say 7.5 seems a bit low, honestly. Again, it wasn't a full rebuild. Like, they actually were 7-6 the year before as well. But again, you have it was your first season. You went 7-6, but you've done pretty well, and you have the best quarterback in the Mountain West. And again, if you can't do this, like, you can't adjust Maddox's like apex for good running game. But if you did, and you unadjusted this quarterback's apex for a horrible running game, that difference probably gets a bit bigger. So I actually do like the 7.5, and I'm just looking at the conference odds. I think they have them like 3rd or 4th at plus 750. Yeah. That seems like some value there, right? Again, remember that someone else has to get into the championship game, right? It's not just, and this is the thing, right? First of all, Boise State could flop, and all of a sudden San Jose State's the best team in the conference, or that is San Jose State actually, like, Boise State goes strong and San Jose State gets there. They haven't played each other yet, and maybe San Jose State pulls, like, it, as you get deeper into the year, their wide receivers get better, and maybe they pull off the upset, and then all of a sudden you're sitting with a plus 750 ticket on probably one of the better teams in the conference. So I like the over here, and I like to win the conference.
Yeah, two more things about this team. First of all, I want to point out that Egat only had 7 starts last year. This is the returning starts from last year's 7. Don't forget that they screwed around with Emmett Brown at quarterback for a while, and that didn't really work. He was fun to watch, but not in a football soundest way. Like more in a, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here way. The other thing too is you look at the schedule. I think they're favored in 11 of the 12 games outside of Texas. I don't know what other game they're not even favored in, and I'm not being crazy or dramatic. Who
Maybe
else is
Stanford, maybe.
maybe because it's on the road, but Stanford's got an interim coach, and Stanford was really bad.
But again,
Um,
that's two. That's two losses, right?
yeah,
It's 7.5, and you still have another room
yeah,
for another couple losses there. So
and they get like all of that red quadrant of the conference too. It seems like
yeah,
all the bad teams. I mean, they shouldn't really lose it in Hawaii, but Jesus, look at this. And for Stanford, boy, there's Air Force and there's a lot of easy games there. Okay, I think we're aligned on that. All right, then we get to UNLV, last season's title game loser, runner up, whatever we want to call it. Barry Odom moved on to Purdue, so they get Dan Mullen, whom I'm going to miss. I liked him on ESPN. He was great.
he was actually really good. Yeah,
Quarterback name from our past, Anthony Calandria, who I guess is in his Act 2. He had an awesome Act 1 where he was kind of like that comet that went across the sky and disappeared. I'm, I think just the market's way off here. And I'm going back and forth. Dan Mullen's a good coach, but man, you are starting over on the offensive line. Your quarterback stunk last season with a capital S. This was, I think, it was the best defense last year. Yeah, in terms of power rating. But they got cleaned out. They have 5 returning starts, not starters, starts from last season. You have literally zero connective tissue to the team that you and I were talking about before the pod. We both had them as, looking back, the best team in the conference. We both had them favored over Boise.
yeah,
I screwed up their schedule here. Oh, no, that is week 2. Yeah, sorry. This Idaho State game is week 0 game. I think they are going to get just housed by UCLA. And I say this as someone who's not really a Nico skeptic, we'll say. I don't see this 8.5 being close at all. I think there's a lot of residual pixie dust from last year's team in this 8.5. I don't see it. I think that they're somewhere between just a Mountain West team, and if it doesn't go that way, it's like they're not a good Mountain West team. I don't see them being a good Mountain West team. I have them really overvalued.
yeah. I mean, that O line number is terrifying. If you see one returning starter, and again, don't
Start, not starter. Start.
Yes, start. This is the thing. If you see that number, that's a terrifying number, and we've seen that number in a couple of teams in the past years, and that never ends well. That we're never like, oh, that one broke the trend. No, they all crumble and fail pretty convincingly. So that's a terrifying number. I will say that, yeah, actually, so Dan Mullen, for somehow, well, it's not somehow. So for some, I'll clarify here. For some sports in Canada, we have our own feed. So for hockey games, we have our own feed. So we actually don't see the announcers and commentary that you guys see in the U.S. But for college football, we just don't do that. We just like, yeah, whatever. But for NFL games, we have our own. We hear your color commentators because it's usually like an NBC feed or CBS or whatever. But like in the kind of halftime shows, especially for the main primetime games, we have our own people talking about them, which they're cool. But that's beside the point. But for college football, we just don't do that at all. So I actually see a lot of Dan Mullen. He actually is he was a very good analyst on ESPN. I really liked him there. I thought personally, as a Florida fan, he was a much better analyst than a coach at Florida. So that's where I thought that. Now, he's a fine coach. He's not a bad coach. It's just the fact that you are going in basically. I feel like for some of these ones, it's just like they just get this itch. I want to go coach again. And it's just, okay, but you're getting airdropped into one of the worst possible scenarios here. Like, poor O-line. You picked up Anthony Colandrea from a bargain bin somewhere. And all of this stuff. The defense is in rough shape. Like, I get the 8.5 because I think they're saying they were good last year and Dan Mullen is good. But again, there's so little connective tissue. And it's such a strong point on that. So, yeah. I like the under 8.5. I think this is the second favorites in the conference. It seems insane to me. They should not be the second favorites in the conference.
No.
This is a team that I think I'm gonna very confidently play the under 8.5, and then I'm gonna say, oh, okay, next year, yeah, over whatever that number is, over 5.5. I'm basically the second I get that win total, I'm gonna be like, yeah, okay, fine. Dan Mullen will turn this around. And here's the thing. I think for this team, an extremely successful season would be 6-6 a ball. That would be like If
No.
I am then like raise a banner for that, that's success. But 9-3, are you insane? That would be a new definition of
Yeah.
success if you're able to do that. No, like 8.5. Could this team be okay? Maybe. I will say with Colin Drea, again, we really liked him because he showed some signs of being good and had some flashy plays, but then the reason why he's in this position because he had a bunch of not flashy and really bad plays. So good and the bad. But the thing is, oh, great. So you have a quarterback who's prone to making rash decisions and making mistakes, and you're having him with one returning starter on offense on the offensive line. That's great. That's a good
Yeah.
idea. This is nope. I see no issues with this. Zero issues. I want to see how this goes. This is going to be fun. But yeah, no, I don't think I can. I definitely do not see 9 wins. There's like basically that line implies a 50-50 chance of 9 wins. No, I'm sorry, that's not happening. Something bad is going to happen somewhere in here. There's no way.
Yeah. And kind of along the lines of not to make everything just a callback to Jacksonville State, but along the same lines, Brennan Marion was, I'd say, an offensive coordinator that was way too good to be in a G5 team for too long. And going from that to just a replacement is going to be, I think, a huge step back. And I can't see that being baked in the number either. There's just too many pieces. I think Barry Odom is a defensive guy, and Brendan Marion as offensive guy is magic that you're not going to get close to replicating here. All right, now we're going to go off a cliff here and go into definitely the next part of the conference, Air Force. Interesting with as how do I say as regimented and as much of an identity they have on offense that they were so bad and the second worst offense in the whole conference last year. You know what's interesting is, remember when we previewed them last year, it was just like reds on every experience metric here. I was hoping that these numbers would be a lot higher on the improvement metrics, and they're not there. Now, according to Phil, they had a ton of injury problems, which I think explains to a degree their performance, and these numbers line up with that. So I can see some improvement that's aligned with that. I hit on this in our podcast last year, and their average game grade through October 19th was a negative 17.5, which is horrible. Thereafter, it was just a minus 5.2. So something clicked there. I don't know if it was experience and or guys coming back from injury. The season win total is 5.5. I've got them as slightly overvalued just because I'm not going to lay that much on such an unknown thing. Can they get to 6? Sure. I'm not going to spend $1.70 to get $1 back to find out why. Just too many unknowns here. I think they'll be good. I'm not going to put money behind it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? We were a few years ago. We were talking about how we thought this was like one of the best, if not the best teams in. I mean, not in college football, but like it was a really good team. Like
in G5.
In G5, like an absolutely dominant G5 team. And then there was just this weird slide towards the end of the season where they just started randomly losing games they should have been winning by like a mile. And then last season, again, a slide, but in the last, and I'm just looking here on Phil Steele, last 4 weeks, like dominant wins here, basically, against pretty much everybody, right? So it's interesting. I don't know what it's hard to handicap. This is a kind of thing like a wait and see. Wait a couple weeks, you get Utah State, you get Boise State. If they look good against Utah State, then bet them against Boise State and start betting them like conference wins, right? Because I think what are they to win the conference? I'm not sure. Let me call that up actually. But I think they could be a play potentially because we have seen this absolutely dominant ground game on Air Force, and it's so hard to beat that when you are a G5 team, especially when you don't have the defensive depth that anybody else does, and it's just like you have to stack the box, and then that's when they can just absolutely crush you through the air. That's when we have these insane apexes on some of these quarterbacks, like a 200 yes. apex or something. Like, this is the thing. So I really like the concept of a strong Air Force is fun, but I think we need to see a proof of concept. We need to see a couple weeks. And if we do 100%, just like if they start doing immediately bet like conference, bet them against Boise State because they're going to be 2-score underdogs against Boise State. Mm-hmm. That's your spot right there. If they look good against Bucknell and Boise State looks a little off, just pound that line 100%. Boise State won't be able to beat them on that. And at that point, then start betting them conference and all the other stuff. That would be my take on it.
Yeah, analogous to when you were explaining how you played your Arch Manning tickets, if you will. I think that you make a good point here about
16
I'm
to
not
1
going to
16 to 1 for the conference, by the way. Yeah.
and there you go. Am I going to lay 170 to win 100 on a hope that it works out as I think? No. If the path is there, am I going to take 16 to 1? Why not? That
Yeah.
seems okay. One of those kind of horse racing things. If I've got a horse, I don't know if they'll go to the grass. Am I going to take even money? No. If I get 20 to 1 and everything else looks good, why not? Throw them on my ticket for sure. Same kind of concept here. All right. Who do we got next? Boy. Oh, excuse me. It's Colorado State time, everybody. Consistently boring last year. This is unbelievable. And last year, they were slightly above conference average in Apex Plus, GGAB Plus, Ryan, Defensive Apex Plus, Defensive GGAB Plus, Offensive rating, and Total Power rating. They had a nice win with the 8-5, but just... Who is that? Who was like... I don't know. It's like the NBA guy who's no fun to watch, but then he somehow has like 14 points. I don't even remember this guy playing. That's like their season last year. Fowler Nicolosi, 96 Apex. Okay, I'd want a little more in his second year. Now he's started in year 3 of starting. Nothing really remarkable in the improvement metrics on offensive line or defense. I see just like an extension of last season. Now, maybe they clunk up as other horses fade in this race here. I like Jay Norvell, but again, the 6.5 doesn't seem crazy. The minus 160, that's just too rich for my blood, so I've got it slightly overvalued. Can they go to 7 wins plus? Sure. I'm not going to lay that kind of money to find out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't see enough from this team to be there. You've got Washington. They've decided to play Washington for some reason. Northern Colorado, that's one of the better-ish FCS teams. UTSA, Washington State, again, they're not really doing themselves much favors with the schedule here. You got Boise State, you got Air Force, which could potentially be good, Hawaii on there. So I do not love this schedule. I don't want to play it. Again, Norvell has shown improvement over the 4 years here. He's gotten them up and up. But again, if the peak of this is just like an average or a slightly above average team, I'm not really getting that excited about this, right? So I need to see more to be really excited about this Colorado State team.
Yeah. Counterpoint, though, I think that this could be a horse race where a lot of the front runners just kind of stumble towards the last eighth of a mile, though, right? If they just kind of keep up their grindy pace from last year, they could clunk up into the title game. I don't know. I see more upside in Air Force in this team, though, right? I think maybe it's the quarterback here. I want to see more in year 2 than an Apex of 96 in this conference. Not what I want. Okay, interesting team here, Hawaii. Braden Shager, pardon me, 1 R in that last name, spent a lot of time in the Casa de Bum list throughout last season. I don't know if he was hurt or if Timmy Chang just said enough of this nonsense. So they did have this Micah Alejado guy who had a 139 Apex in 2 games, 1 start. But we need to take that number advisedly. Now, those were his first 2 games that he's playing, so I'm not going to argue with it. We just need to normalize that in that you had that against a very bad pass defense in Utah State, and a exceptionally horrible one in New Mexico. Your mileage may vary, as they say in the car business. They do have the top. This returning Ryan is the best in the conference, which you need because they don't run the ball. They have the second highest improvement metric on the offensive line in the Mountain West as well. Their defense was, I think, more the strength of this team. They seem to have the right coordinator there. Now, that's a concern when you have an offensive coach whose strength is the defensive side of the ball. But maybe with the right quarterback in place, maybe if they can just play Utah State and New Mexico every week in like their own conference, I think that's the future Mountain West Conference is what that'll be. Maybe they can get there. 5.5 seems a little low, but if I offset it with lane 155, I'm sure that seems reasonable to me. They're in the top of the red quadrant, so I think there's a lot of games that look 50-50 and are 50-50 here. So I can't really play it. It seems like a fair number to me.
Yeah, it seems pretty fair. I don't know what you always love a fun Hawaii team, right? Because you get it's actually after Pac-12 after dark. Sometimes these games start like midnight. You get to watch it on that one app, and that's pretty fun. So I will say that you obviously want a fun Hawaii team. A fun Hawaii team is good. So you want this. I just will say that like Timmy Chang, he's been here a couple of years now. He really hasn't shown much. I think he's been here. Yeah, he's been here 4 years. I don't think they've actually made a bowl yet. Yeah, no,
No.
they have not made a bowl with him, and that's a little disappointing because we've been saying, okay, this is the year, this is the year, this is the year, and they're just not there. They have some fun. They've had some games when it's been like, man, this is really fun. This is a really fun team. This is the year, and then something happens. Braden Shager was on the bum list because there's games where he'd throw for 300 yards and there's games where he'd have 2 interceptions, right? So it's like that kind of thing. If you can find a consistent quarterback, maybe, and again, maybe Alejandro there is. I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to be consistently good enough or not, right? So I think it's going to be, Hawaii games always fun to watch. Always fun to watch. We're fun where to see how this goes. But yeah, I'm going to say that this is not a play for me, but it's something to watch, right? If this team is fun, they clearly want to be a team that throws the ball a lot and doesn't play much defense, and that's a pretty good thing to have in the Mountain West. But again, then they always get shut down by a team that just has good defense. So we're going to see. We'll have to see.
Two things. In fairness to Timmy Chang, a lot of coaches go into bad situations, but how many coaches can you remember going into situations that were so bad because the head coach was fired by basically the Hawaii State Senate? Answer, I think, is zero, although a dysfunctional place like Marshall might be a good analog. I really want to see, if I can get my... There we go. I want to see them put up a good number against Sam Houston right here. It's a home game. They lost last year. There's going to be some kind of element of revenge. It can't be easy for Sam Houston in year one post Casey Keller and under Phil Longo and all the ill-fitting pieces that they appear to have. Catch the Conference USA preview if you didn't catch it yet. I want to see Hawaii win by 2+ scores in that one. If they don't, then I'm concerned. And if they do, I think that they can get over that 6 wins. I want to see how Alejado looks in that game too as well. He needs to light it up in these 2 games here between Sam Houston and Portland State. Don't turn into Gavin Wimsatt. That's what needs to do, right? As a minimum.
Yeah, I want to see something against Stanford too, right? That's week 0. It's unclear when that game actually is. The books are saying it's like at 7:30, but that seems wrong. I don't like. Why would Hawaii kick off a game at 3 in the afternoon? I want to check that.
And that's a week 0 game.
Yeah, it's a week 0 game.
Because I make this always about USC. When USC played at Hawaii, it kicked off around 7 Pacific, so it would be around like 4 your time.
Okay, it is saying 7:30. It's saying 7:30 p.m., which seems wrong.
Your time?
Yeah, 7:30 my time.
That would be like that's 6 hours ahead of you. That'd be like 1:30 Hawaii time.
Oh, it's on CBS. Maybe that's why. It's on the national network.
Yeah. And it's a week 0, so there's not a lot going on here.
So maybe it got bumped up for that. That makes some amount of sense. But not a lot of sense.
4:30 my time. 7:30 your time. Yeah, 1:30.
It got the national bump, so that's why, because it got on CBS.
Yeah. What else is... Yeah, there's no real CBS kind of teams that play except for the Mountain West. Or Conference USA. They're really a CBS sports team, not a CBS team.
Yeah, but I think because there's still a few other games, they're just like, yeah, whatever. So we're just going to put it on the... So, yeah, that's... Yeah, but I want to see something in that game, too. There's only 3 other games on, so I will see some of that game. But I need to see something there.
Okay. All right, next, Fresno State Bulldogs. Like I said, Tim Skipper, the interim, was let go. I think for good reason. I think he was an offensive coordinator before they promoted him, and their offense stunk last year. You're looking at a bit of a rebuild here. You have one of the worst returning Ryans in the conference, in literally the country here. Not a lot of return experience of the offensive line. E.J. Warner is the new quarterback who disappointed at Temple, then stunk at Rice. Okay, let's go to Fresno State. Let's try that. Matt Entz, the coach, comes over from USC. He was a linebacker coach. Before that, he was the head coach at North Dakota State. Now, he didn't build that program, but he didn't totally screw it up. I just see so many horrible pieces here. This is a year 0 on offense. I can't even say it's like a year 1. There's no pieces to really build around here. Defensively, they were the second best in the conference last year with a power rating of 4.1. I don't know if this is enough. They might have enough to just build upon that. I'm expecting them to get absolutely housed by Kansas. That's If they have some fight in the second half, then maybe that's a good sign for them. But I think Kansas is just in a totally different spot than they are. Total of 6.5 seems rich, and then laying 140 on top of that. So I'm calling them blatantly overvalued. Not gonna play it because Entz's we went through just for therapeutic purposes. When we had our what's a good coach to bet against, he's a proven head coach. He didn't build North Dakota State, but I think he had 2 national titles. So
Yeah.
I'll find other places to fade than here. So overvalued, but not bettably.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why, even for that week 0 game with Kansas, Kansas should be able to find a way to win. I'd say EJ Warner if you're a head coach and you have EJ Warner as your quarterback, that's a little terrifying because he was not good at all.
No.
Like he has a famous last name, but that's it. And I remember he was very hyped at Rice, and then that did nothing. It did literally nothing.
Maybe he was just trying to fit in with Rice by being terrible.
Maybe, but again, it's not like at Rice. It's not okay. Is your team good? No, but are you playing against other teams that are good? Also, no. Like you should be able to at least have a somewhat decent apex. You shouldn't have what is it? What's his apex? 59? Yeah, like you shouldn't have a 59 apex playing at Rice for a couple years too. No, I'd be terrified of that. Kansas should be strong and should come out of the gate. Should be strong. But yeah, that seems a little rich. I do coach though, but you worry if there's enough here for this year. You worry if that's maybe it's just not enough this year, and then this is again another team where it's like okay, next year they could win the Mountain West, but it's just like this year, no, maybe they make a bowl, that's it.
Yeah, he literally walked in when he was at North Dakota State. He walked into a national championship program.
Mm-hmm.
Not the case in Fresno this year, so
yeah.
Quite different. All right, San Diego State. Sean Lewis, I love you, guy, but man, you had a bad season. Worst team in the conference by my power ratings. They do get a new quarterback named Jaden Denegal from Michigan. He could not be worse than what they had going last year. That was just a rough. If you have a Sean Lewis team that doesn't have a quarterback, it's going to be a bad watch, and that's what we saw. Let me grab my laser pointer here. I don't know how to explain a 266 defensive apex plus. It's basically like saying, okay, think of the 10 passes that Army throws per game, and they go for 40 yards per completion. That's basically what this team did on defense the entirety of all last year. I can't even say they didn't stop anybody. They didn't even get in anybody's way or put a pebble in anybody's path. This is just absurd. Now, I've only done Apex Plus for 1 year, but this might be the leader in the clubhouse for worst ever for a defense. Now, the good news. They have basically the second biggest improvement metric in all of FBS for defense, so they did take lumps. Hopefully they improve. I'm looking at week 2 at Washington State. That'll be interesting because Washington State's in a bit of a rebuild. They have a guy from Montana State who's been pretty successful, and he's one of these guys that brought a dozen or so kids from that team. So we'll see. That's what I'm really interested in terms of their early season schedule. So season win total of 4.5. The overtaking some money. I think it's reasonable. I can see a path to being improved. You've got, they were so bad on both sides of the ball that I think the defense will improve, and I think that the offense should improve in year 2 under Sean Lewis. But reasonably valued. There's nothing for me to really bet here, but just watch it as a fan of Sean Lewis and what he did at Kent State.
Yeah, I think so. Again, Jaden Denegal at Michigan, like all of Michigan's quarterbacks last year were pretty bad. And that was pretty universal, right? Actually, I think I forgot about that. I wanted to mention that the other one, if I remember correctly, wasn't there another Michigan quarterback that went to one of these other schools? It wasn't Fred.
Orgy was at, where did he land? I think he's at a Sun Belt team.
Okay.
Conference USA.
Oh, okay. I forgot. Yeah, I remember one. I remember. I didn't remember. I remember I wanted to mention it, but I can't remember what school it was for. That's how relevant it was. But he was like the backup, and again, that's not a great spot either when that guy's your backup. So, again, that's not great. Again, they need to fix the defense. Let's see what they could do this year. I think that's reasonable value. I don't see any screaming play on that one. Let's see what they could do. But I think eventually this team could start to rebuild. Maybe this team gets closer to 500 this year. Maybe we see the breakout next year.
Yeah. Or just a backup at UNLV. Backing up Colin Dreyer.
We're not there yet.
Command.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
I remember that's one of the reasons why I was so low on UNLV because it's like, yeah, okay, if Colandrea is not good, then okay, what are you gonna do? Put him in? How is that? Someone who's sometimes bad versus someone who's actively hurting your team.
Yeah.
Okay,
Two guys that can run, though.
can run. He can run.
Throw in the ball. Yeah. Two guys who have a good opportunity to beat Gavin Winsat, I guess we could say. All right. Wyoming Cowboys. Oh, were they 3-9 last season? Yeah. Not surprising.
Yeah.
So Jay Sawvell was an internal promotion after Craig Bull retired. Concern, I think Sawvell was the defensive coordinator. Yeah. So what happens here? He's promoted to head coach, and the defense goes from a power rating of 3.2 to negative 8.1, despite a very high improvement metric. That is extremely concerning. You might remember they had a true bum list guy in is it Even or Ethan? Even Svoboda. He was horrible. He finally got hurt, and then this Caden Anderson came in and showed surprising competence. But just like our guy Micah Alahado, I literally did a copy and paste for a part of this. Again, against bad Utah State pass defense and horrible New Mexico and slightly above average Colorado State and then sneakily bad Boise State. Maybe he's competent by Mountain West standards, but I need to be convinced. Coming off of this horrible defensive season last year, now you got a complete rebuild, only 22 returning starts. You've got a low improvement metric. You've got very little career starts here. You're just starting all over again. I guess they upset the Mountain West commissioner because by far the two worst teams in this conference are Utah State and New Mexico. They miss them both. I don't know how that could happen, but bad luck for them. This game at Akron on week 1, that could be, it's unfortunate it's on ESPN Plus because that could just be absolute magic in terms of just some bad throwing of the football. Season win total of 5.5. I definitely like the under, but as bearish as I am on this team, I don't want to lay 180 when they do have some possible functional competence at quarterback that a lot of teams are striving for in this conference. So I'll just say it's, I don't know if it's reasonably valued, but there's no betting angle for me on the season win total here.
Yeah, this is. I don't know which direction this program is going. You had a long-time head coach who was really great in that program, and that seems like a distant memory now. And now we're back to mediocrity. 5.5 under 180 makes sense. I wouldn't want to touch this. I think you can maybe. I think with Akron, I think they're like favorites against Akron, which like I don't know if they should be. I feel like that one is. Yeah, they are 9.5 point favorites at Akron. That's a little high. It's Akron, but you're at Akron from Wyoming. It seems high. We haven't done Akron yet. We haven't done the mountain. We haven't done the MAC yet. But like to me, that just screams something is wrong. Like that just screams that line shouldn't be that high.
Yeah, again, maybe it's just a matter of there's one guy on the field that can throw the ball, and it's this kid.
We'll do it. We haven't done Akron yet. We'll do Akron, but that to me, like that's one of the lines. Because just looking down the line a little bit, that's one of them that sticks out to me. That one seems wrong. That seems wrong. But no, I'm not touching this team. Maybe bet against this team. Like that 9.5 is very tempting, but we'll see. But no, I think this is. I don't see a play here on this total.
I think we might do the Akron preview and say it's only 9.5. What's going on here? Nevada Wolfpack 3 wins in 3-10. They're one of the few teams that took advantage of the. As I look at my schedule here, they didn't. Oh no, last year they took advantage of the Hawaii thing. Yeah. So that was in Jeff Choate's first year. Marginal improvement in the defense, his side of the ball, but it was improvement, so I'd like to see that. Second unluckiest team in all of FBS. Interesting. That's pretty bullish, especially in a coach's first year. That kind of stuff turns a lot in the second season. The offense made a huge step forward from negative 9.5 to basically FBS average, which is a huge step forward. Now, the problem with that is their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, went to Memphis. The offensive coordinator, Matt Lubick, went to Kansas. Put a little reminder note there. Let's remember that. Big 12 is the next preview that we do, so let's remember that. I really like what Matt Lubick did here very quickly. New quarterback, you might remember, Chubba Purdy. How do we know him? Brother of Brock
Mm-hmm.
and backup to Jeff Turnover, as we call him, Jeff Sims at
Oh, that's
Nebraska.
right. I remember that name now. Yes, I'd forgotten that name, but yeah, yeah, that was. I remember because it was like we're like, oh, throw in Brock Purdy's brother. How bad could it be? And it was like actually really bad too. I remember
Yeah.
that now. Yeah.
They lost. They how do I say this? They lost. No receivers transferred out, which is or no Ryan transferred out, which I think is a really good sign. Now they do have a low improvement metric on the offensive line and the defense. I think that might be endemic to a place at Nevada that's more on the underfunded side of the conference. What's good is they get all of the lower class, basically all of that red quadrant, if you will, of the Mountain West. I'm interested to see them in week 3 hosting Middle Tennessee State. You've got two guys here in him and Mason in year 2 of a rebuild, pretty dramatic rebuild. Two guys who I think are Choda's a proven good head coach and was a good defensive coordinator or defensive assistant at Texas, just were very well thought of. Middle Tennessee, a half of a half team in that they could only pass the ball. I think that's a good test for them just to see where they are right now. Middle Tennessee seems like about average in a lower conference. Season win total of 3.5. The over's juiced a little. If I look at this, now Sacramento State is tricky because Brennan Marion's there. He might turn them around. You've got sneaky tough. This is a coin toss to me. In Western Kentucky's tough, like we talked about in Conference USA. Have fun playing at Penn State. Take a picture in front of the scoreboard and all that stuff. But I think that they seem to me like one that could maybe pull away a little bit from the bottom quadrant if the guy who backed up Jeff Turnover can find a path here. I like them. I think they're undervalued, but I don't think it's bettably.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't love that quarterback right now. Maybe again, he was playing in the yeah, it was the Big Ten. Yeah, Nebraska was in the Big Ten then. Yes, it was the Big Ten. So not a fun place to have quarterbacks. You have to be a really good quarterback to play in the Big Ten. But still, though, far from what I would call good. So maybe it slows down a bit. It gets a bit better, but yeah, that was not good. Again, it's Nevada. I think 3.5. You've got Wyoming on there. You have New Mexico. You have Fresno. You have Middle Tennessee. You do have it. Like you have Utah. You have some options. You have some ways to get there. I don't think I'd play this one. I think I'd probably leave this one alone. But they're probably going to find a couple of wins there, and then like that's the thing. Like if they win Sacramento State, then you're feeling pretty good about this. But if they don't, or if they struggle, if they win against Sacramento State and Middle Tennessee, they're going to get over. That's the thing. They'll get another 2 wins somewhere from New Mexico or San Diego State. We haven't gotten to New Mexico yet. Probably, I think that's coming up soon. But no, I'm probably not going to play it, but because I could see a 3-9 season. But they could be a little undervalued. There might be some plays on them later in the season.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do the new head coach podcast because they burned me last year. They had 3 wins and their season total was 2 coming into the season, and this guy stood out as even though he didn't even make the overperformers because he beat it by a half or by 1 game and not 1.5. This guy was a proven head coach at Montana State, I think it was, and I felt really dumb. It's like, you look back, it's like, why would I bet against this guy and Bronco Mendenhall, 2 good head coaches?
Just looking at some of the games, actually, just looking at some of their games last year, right? At Boise State, they were 23-point underdogs. They lost by 7. That's pretty good. Fresno State, 3-point underdogs, lost by 3. 3-point underdogs to Oregon State, beat Oregon State. 8-point underdog, beat Troy as a dog, but to be fair, they would have almost took out SMU, 27-point underdogs to SMU, but that was when they were playing the Preston Stone. So they had interesting moments last year, but they could just never put it together. Like again, but then they got good Air Force at the end of the year. UNLV 17-point dogs, 17. Yeah, they didn't cover that spread. Hawaii had a good game that week. They covered against San Jose State. They didn't cover at Minnesota. Like there were signs there that they were okay, but they just could never put together that win. They had a lot of 1-score losses. I think that comes up with that minus 3.3 Lux score too. If that mean reverts, yeah, you could see 4 or 5 wins. Maybe I'm talking myself into this over. Maybe.
Yeah, it's almost a bet on basically those second and third games. On they're going to win one, or at least one, or most likely two, is what that bet is. So maybe if, I don't know, is there like a total degenerate look ahead line website that would actually have look ahead lines on those games?
I think there is something. Yeah, I'll take a
Wow.
look at that. Yeah.
Okay. Is it like on Silk Road where you can also buy like actual munitions and launder money
No,
and stuff?
I don't think it's that. It's probably I don't know. There are some like you can bet on Michigan Ohio State right now, but that's it. Then I think there's not much else not many other future ones you can bet on.
I think there's a little more, not to be controversial here, but probably a little more betting action than that than Nevada hosting the Hornets of Sacramento State. Is that fair?
Could you have yeah? So usually for FCS lines, you can't. Usually FCS lines aren't even like the week before. They're like 2 days before. They're like, all right, here. That's literally the FCS lines. So yeah, I don't think there is. I don't think that line exists right now. No, probably
Yeah.
not.
Okay. But yeah, I think if you feel like they're going to win those two, definitely there's a path after that. All right. So we were just talking about Bronco Mendenhall. He takes over at Utah State for the interim guy. I forget. Oh, Dreiling or something like that. What were they last year? 4-8. Not too bad of a job by him considering that he came into a bad situation. And his quarterback was Bryson Barnes, also known as the pig farmer from Utah, transferred to Utah State. I believe his last career win might have been at Utah against USC. Thank you very much, Alex Grinch. We will talk about you in our next podcast. But boy, this is a rough situation. Offensive line is completely hollowed out here. 3 returning starts, not starters. Nothing really returning in terms of receiving talent. Not that it matters because your quarterback is Bryson Barnes, who stinks. The defense doing their part to really stink as well. Not a lot returning there either. Oops. I kept my note here, Middle Tennessee. Pardon me, I screwed something up. And my wife's coming home, so the dogs are barking. Season win total is 4.5. The under's 150. I don't think it's bettable. I don't want to lay that much, but boy, oh boy, I think that this is a bad team. Let's say that they beat McNeese. This UTEP game is sickos exponentially. After that, you're getting to, okay, maybe we can beat New Mexico. Based on our discussion, I think that we both think that Nevada would probably be one score favorite against these guys. These guys are overvalued and very possibly bettably, although I'm not a huge fan of laying 150 against a guy who just shoved it in everybody's face when New Mexico's season total was 2 last year. But he doesn't have Devin Dampier I don't know if you realize that.
Yes. So that's actually an interesting thing. So that's exactly where the conversation I think begins with this team and begins and ends with the next team too. So I think for the next two teams, we're going to talk about Devin Dampier. For Utah State and New Mexico State, or New Mexico is the next one and last one. We're gonna mention Devin Dampier a lot. Obviously, last year I think what was New Mexico's win total was 1.5, I think, and it was like under,
2.
like it was 2, yeah, or no, yeah, yeah. So the win total was 2. They thought, and I think the under was shaded too.
But then it was juiced, yeah.
Yeah, or yeah, or no, the over was 2. Sorry, yeah, I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah,
the money was on the under.
Yeah, basically they were expected to be an absolutely horrible team. Like a team that was supposed to. I remember the first, and I'll just note here what it was for New Mexico. They were 13-point underdogs to an FCS team in Week 1 last year. That was the expect. Now, to be fair, it was a good FCS team. It was a good FCS team. They were a team that they made the FCS playoffs, but they were in fact underdogs to an FCS team. Now, obviously, Devin Dampier did very well on New Mexico last year, and it was a huge part of that. Again, you just looking at some of these scores and just insane amount of offensive production from Devin Dampier last year. Definitely kept them in there, definitely kept them competitive, a huge reason why they were able to win what they were last year. The question now is how much of Bronco Mendenhall's success was just literally Devin Dampier and how much was him. His defense was horrible last year. Horrendous.
Yeah.
Probably one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in my entire life. That being said, you have a good quarterback. You can make a lot of that disappear, right? You have Bryson Barnes, who has an apex of 48. Now, they somehow found ways to win games last year, and I think Bronco Mendenhall is a good coach, but like the defense is going to be a problem, and I just don't know if Bryson Barnes can meet that same offensive production. I think this is like rebuild. He might actually underperform what he did last year, but watch out for this Utah State team like next year. But I don't want, based on my experience last year, I do not want to bet against, because I found myself betting on New Mexico a lot at the end of last year. So I do not want to open up the gates here betting against Utah State. I'd much rather be betting, just leaving this one alone, see how it goes.
Agree. My Chihuahua agrees with you clearly as she's barking and won't stop. I'm just going to give you a name here, Anthony Garcia. He is a sophomore. He's the backup quarterback. I don't understand why you just wouldn't go with him. There's no upside to starting Bryson Barnes. Now, did he get the best offensive coordinator in Andy Ludwig at Utah? No, probably not. But I think we know what we have in him. He's a limiting factor. I can't think that starting this kid, and I know nothing about Mr. Garcia other than he played it, or he was on the Arizona roster. Can't see him being any worse than Bryson Barnes, or materially worse, or just setting the program back so much. I think you're setting the program back by starting this clown. On that season total of 4.5, if I'm counting up my wins here, McNeese, New Mexico, like what I can count on as wins, and I guess UTEP. I mean, after that, I don't see, they're not really in the class of, what's the next easiest game that they have? Fresno? Or Hawaii? They're not even close to those teams, right?
No.
Not even close.
Not on a talent level, no.
Yeah, you'd need Brock and Mendenhall just to show that he's just like a wizard, not even a good coach. So, okay, we're aligned on that. Maybe you'll disagree with me on this last team, New Mexico. Husky Jason Eck, former Wisconsin lineman, takes over for the departed Mr. Mendenhall. No conference titles in 3 years at Idaho. That 18-6 conference record is good. He did make the playoff in all 3 years at Idaho, so there is something to be said for that. And I think he had some postseason success as well. If you look at the Phil Steele, at the tiny agate type, as they say in the newspaper business, you'll see a lot of guys from Idaho. You'll see some names from other Big Sky teams too. I like that. Good name here, Jack Lane. Close enough to Jack LaLanne, where I think that there might... Do you know who Jack LaLanne is?
No.
Thank you for making me feel old again. Okay, we'll have a feature on him at some point. He'll get his own deeper dive. He's from 70 years ago. 151 apex at Idaho, though. I feel a little bit of Missouri State kind of magic here. You do have the number one... I don't know how to say this. I'm going to throw the words together, and you can probably understand the concept. They have the incoming transfer in the Mountain West with the highest Ryan from last year. This kid, Keegan Johnson from Kansas State. Now, they're hitting Control-Alt-Delete on the defense. And as we just talked about, that's a good thing. Especially with the defensive power rating of minus 16.6. Thank you very much. Look who pops up in Week 5. I like this game. I'll just say that. Don't want to spoil anything. Season win total of 3.5, and actually the over's taking some money here. If you look at now, Mr. Eck probably knows what's going on at Idaho State. We'll come back to Mexico State. Maybe he can get 3.5, 4 wins. I don't know. There's enough uncertainty there where I'm not going to do it, but I do some pieces here where there's almost something of an identity that I can figure out between. I'll put it this way. It's not a stretch to think that Jack Lane, or Jack LaLanne, his grandfather, throwing to this Keegan Johnson, would not be one of the in the top half of the conference in terms of QB and wide receiver. That's something. That can get them towards the head of the red quadrant, if you will. So I'm not going to bet it, but I don't know. I can definitely see a path here.
Okay, so you are able to replace Devin Dampier, probably not to the same level, but you're able to have a replacement. That's not bad. Again, we talk a bit about that adjusted Apex 150 coming in. That's probably about that probably roughly translates to a good quarterback in the thing. Also, I'm fairly sure that last year Idaho's calling card in the FCS, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure their calling card was their good defense. So if you're able to actually import a good defense, that could go a long way to fixing the problems with this team. Again, just
Coach's son is the starting linebacker, Jackson Eck.
But just look at some of these scores from last year. 35. They lost 35-31 against an FCS team, Montana State. Arizona put up 61 points against them. Auburn put up 45. Fresno 34. New Mexico State put up 50. Air Force 52. Utah State 50. Colorado State somehow only 17. But then Wyoming put up 45.
49.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, 49, 49. They scored 45, 49, then 21 from San Diego State, 38 from Washington State, and then Hawaii, 38. Oh, no, Washington State, oh, yeah, 35, and then 38. So, again, far from anything you would resemble a good defense. That was horrendous. Again, like,
Yeah.
if you're averaging 30 points a game, that's bad, but some of those were 50 and 60. That's really bad. Like, you should not be laying in any points. If you can mean revert the defense a bit, and if Jack Lane is able to minimize the losses to the mean reversion on offense, maybe you got something there. Maybe this could be a team that could sneakily upset like a New Mexico State, or maybe even a Utah State or something. Like there's UNLV potentially, a Colorado State. There might be some pieces here. Michigan, no, that's bad.
No.
But UCLA, no. But could this team do something? Maybe it could win a couple games. Maybe. I don't see a path to bowl eligibility, but to be fair, we didn't see that last year from New Mexico. I don't know.
Yeah, let me put it this way. They're hosting New Mexico State. I'm going to use the backwards terminology here. I don't see that as a double money or a double plus money line. I would lay some money on the Lobos here.
Interesting.
So I'm going against Tony Sanchez. I've got a quarterback and an actual head coach going against Tony Sanchez. Come on.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Yeah, that'll be, and I'm sure that'll be. Yeah, it's at New Mexico. That's not going to be on TV. I don't know. I'll have to sneak onto your, I don't know, Greater Ontario or Greater Toronto sneaky app to watch that one if I want to.
TSN Plus, yes.
Plus. All right. So those are the teams. Our wrap-up questions here. One upset involving a Mountain West team. Do you want to go first since I stole your Conference USA play?
Yeah. I think I'm going to... I feel like I'm going to steal yours by going with New Mexico over New Mexico State. But I'm not sure.
You into that. I set you up.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll take let me pick a different one here.
You picked it. There's one other one I had.
Okay.
Okay, no. If you want another one, go ahead. All
right, let me pick a different one here. Let me see. Let me do... Let's do... Air Force over Boise.
Ooh, you scared me there. Okay.
What was the scary part there?
Mine is Air Force over UNLV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. And which two teams play for the conference title here?
I'm doing it because I just don't like it, but I'm going to go San Jose State and Air Force.
An Air Force? Wow.
I can't ignore that value, and I can't ignore the fact that I feel like UNLV is an obvious trap, and I can't ignore the fact that I feel like Boise is a trap here too.
Okay. I don't love doing this, but geez, I'm going Boise against San Jose State.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to the Phil Steele place again. That's it. If you look at the prices on the bottom here to win the conference title, there's one that appeals to me, probably appeals to you. Actually, there might be two that appeal to you. We hit on them both. But yeah, where do you see value?
My picks, I think, San Jose and Air Force. I like both of those.
Yeah, I like San Jose State. I'm definitely not laying money on Boise minus 135. If you really want to do that, just, I don't know, find like 2 games to parlay before the title game if you think that's a fair price to win the title game. My goodness, this is a conference they should be in the driver's seat, but not nearly that squarely. Not to the point where it's minus money. Okay, Robert, that is the Mountain West. I from the West congratulate you, the Mountain, on a good podcast here. We will be back next week with doing the Big 12 as our next conference, and our guy Duck should be back for that too. 3-man guy, so that'll probably go about 4.5 hours.
We'll point out that we are recording it next week, but it might come out a few days after. Week. Yeah, for schedule, but soon. The next one that comes out will be with Duck. Yeah,
the juicy Big 12. A lot of good storylines. And you've agreed with me a lot. I think that we're going to disagree. I think that based
Okay.
on some of the it's about time that you and I had a good arm wrestling here because it's been too chummy so far.
I know we're coming there for. We already know we're gonna have some in the AC and probably the Big Ten. So
Yeah. Until now, it's just kind Californian and gentle Canadian just agreeing too much. So sparks will fly soon. We promise everybody.
yes,
Okay. Thank you for watching and listening. We appreciate it. If you want the PDFs of the decks, go ahead and drop your email address in the YouTube comments or hit me up on, I still call it Twitter. Until then, until the Big 12, be well and we will see you shortly. Thanks all.
so yeah.